Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Mendez, host of the Round Table. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Señores amigos oyentes de USALA Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda de Round Table desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil of the Controls, and recovering from this Wednesday storm that caused such trouble in Philadelphia, New York, all the way Boston, and affected many states. People died in New Jersey, New York. I think I heard Mayor de Blasio say that 13 people died in New York, a large number in New Jersey and Pennsylvania also. Some people died, and add to that the people who died when the hurricane that turned into just a rainstorm later hit Louisiana. So that devastated Louisiana and Mississippi and everything in between. And then we got the rain. We got the heavy rain. record rain from Philadelphia to New York to Boston, where they showed pictures of the stadiums filled with water, and they showed the subways in New York where it just as though they were outdoors. The rain just kept coming down. So de Blasio was again telling the world that in spite of all the plans and everything, New York fell short, and the kind of storm that hit us on Wednesday is the type of storm that comes every 500 years. So, and New York had just had a record 2 weeks before. So this is not every 500 years. It's becoming every 500 days, perhaps, this kind of storm and this kind of climate that affects us from California to New York. The fires in California, the floods on the East Coast. It's a change in the world climate. Global warming that, as we know, during the previous administration was something that was not part of the agenda. It was not accepted that even existed global warming. And so we lost, because of that administration, we lost 4 years of the fight against the damage caused by global warming. And now we don't know. Some of this it's not reversible. A lot of the damage that we have caused to the environment is not reversible. I mean, and I know in this program we have spoken to people from Climate Power, and they tell us the same thing that we're just saying. It's the damage to the earth that we have caused and brought on global warming is real. So this the Paris Accords on climate that we have rejoined when Biden became president. Maybe that would help us. But we have just received recently a report from the UN about the climate and what we can do to save ourselves. According to that report from the UN, we have until 2050, I think, is the extreme date for us to act on this. And so that unless we, the country, the world, unless we do something drastic to combat global warming, it's we're destroying the earth. And so among other items on the agenda for President Biden, we understand the economy is a priority, this whole infrastructure. Part of that, we understand now, the headline today is that Joe Manchin, Senator Manchin, is opposed to some parts of the Biden infrastructure, and that will make it more difficult for it to pass. As we know, the Democrats have no control really of the Senate. It's evenly divided, and a very small margin of votes in the House. So everybody, they need every Democrat, and they need the support of a few Republicans. Where are they? We don't know. Because we also have seen another thing. The Supreme Court now has given the Texas abortion law refuses to block that law, which will, in fact, cause women now to have to go look for abortions outside the state. And it's a draconian measure. I mean, it really allows people to be sued by third parties. So, as a private citizen, if you don't agree with somebody seeking an abortion, you can sue them. You can sue the person carrying this person, transporting this person anywhere in the States or even outside the state. Well, in fact, that's what will happen now. Women in Texas will be forced to go out of the state in order to, if they need an abortion. Because here's another aspect of that law. It does not contemplate exceptions in the case of rape or incest. And so it's more radical than anything that exists right now in other states like Mississippi and places where the conservatives have more control. The Wall Street Journal, in an editorial, tells the Republicans that they have made a mistake. They have handed, according to the Wall Street Journal, they have handed the Democrats a hand grenade that could hurt the anti-abortion cause. Well, if it's such absurd, ridiculous, extreme law, it certainly sets the landscape for future challenges. It's a harsh new abortion law in Texas, banning abortions as early as 6 weeks. It doesn't allow abortions in case of rape or incest. Anybody who helps a woman, a taxi driver, for instance, get an abortion can be arrested and sued. It's unbelievable. In the 2020 election, think about this. In the 2020 election, women, Hispanics, and Blacks made it possible for Biden to defeat Trump. Remember that it was something like 73 million to 78, something like that. And the margin of victory was dictated by the fact that Trump was so unpopular among suburban women and Hispanics and Blacks. I remember one speech by the president, by former President Trump, in which he said, suburban women, please love me. He was almost begging for their support for the vote. Later on, he said that that was a joke, that he said that in a joking way. But we know that he was reading polls, and he was probably not reading, because we know he doesn't like to read anything, but somebody was telling him that he was behind in the polls with suburban women. He was also behind in the polls with Black women, the Black population in general. Again, here's two salient facts of that 2020 election. And we are part of it, of the history of that vote. Philadelphia, that gave Pennsylvania to Biden, and Atlanta, that gave Georgia to Biden. So those are very important numbers in our history. And I just heard commentators say, thank you, Pennsylvania, thank you, Philadelphia, and thank you, Atlanta, thank you, Georgia, for that vote. Also remember that in the special election, 2 senators from Georgia finally gave Democrats a good number of senators, enough to sort of have an even number that the vice president can help tilt the balance in favor of Democrats. So I don't know, it really sets an awful precedent that conservatives should oppose, according to the Wall Street Journal. The law allowing private citizens to make citizens arrest and to sue people. That's unbelievable. That's like creating chaos, giving the opportunity for the average person to block abortions. That's like, really, here, we would like you to fight for your rights, and really fight, because that's what we'll come down to. Don't be surprised. There are some aspects of this that remind me of something I saw recently about New York. New York in times of crisis, from the 9/11 attacks to the most recent events in New York. And they show, I think Spike Lee documentary, or docudrama, I guess. He interviews a lot of people, and we hear from politicians, we hear from national figures, what happened in New York on 9/11. And the last time that Rudy Giuliani played a positive role in New York, he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And then we saw what happened to him. Well, amigos, we're going to take a short break here en Usa la Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil of the Control. Regresamos en un minuto.
Toma menos de un minuto saber si está usted en riesgo de padecer prediabetes. Puede averiguarlo aquí. Visite esta página.
Señores oyentes de Usa la Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil of the Controls, and I was just listening to that ad, and whoever did the voiceover, because it's doubled, it's a Spanish voice, but you can see the lips don't match the movement. It's a very, very rapid speech, and I don't think anybody speaks that way. But anyway, so it's like when they read you the small print in some that comes with packages, blah, 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 and very quickly it says, the the companies that manufacture whatever products, drugs, and other things, protecting themselves by having this small print or very, very fast announcements that nobody can understand or remember. Speaking of, occasionally, I wonder why some people take any of these drugs that are advertised. As soon as I hear towards the end of the announcement, the side effects of many of these medicines, drugs that are prescribed, drugs that are recommended by doctors, etc., and then they read the small print. It could cause fever, it could cause rashes, stomach complications, coughing, rapid heartbeat, even produce death. And so, like, why would you take a medicine that has as a possible side effect death? What do you need to cure? What do you need to heal? What do you need to take that so urgent that you take it and you still risk death? And the irony of this is that so many people are still not vaccinated because they're afraid of the side effects of the vaccine, even though vaccines have been tested in humans. One doctor was saying that before that vaccine was approved, I think it was talking about Moderna, 40,000 people had already taken it, and there were nobody had died, and people had the normal side effects of vaccines. Sometimes, they get high temperatures and muscle aches, but that's it. And that was the effect of, let's say, Moderna, very, very sort of mild side effects. Some people will experience stronger side effects, but in general, these vaccines, and now, okay, here's another public service from Ursula Radio. Now there are more vaccines available in the billions. Moderna, Pfizer, they are all making millions and millions of vaccines so that the whole world can be vaccinated. Why? Because it doesn't matter if we all get vaccinated in the United States, as long as this virus continues living elsewhere, eventually it will come back to our shores. That can be guaranteed. So now that we are all aware of the fact that there's a vaccine and that the side effects of the vaccines are mild compared to what could happen to you if you are attacked by COVID-19 or the Delta version and other versions of this. There's another one coming from Colombia, I forgot the name of it, that apparently is also spreading quickly. So we know the effects of the virus. They have to be not as serious as the effects of other illnesses that we have fought along the way. Polio, smallpox, vaccinations that no human being would oppose because they actually helped humanity to deal with illnesses that were killing millions and millions of people over the centuries. So now here we are, we're fighting a virus, not unlike the 1918 Spanish flu that killed so many people, and now we have a virus that is refusing to leave. Okay, so we were doing so well. We were doing extremely well in the United States, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, We know that the numbers were down. People were going to hospitals. Very few people in the hospitals. Many you could see videos of hospitals that had been had set up emergency tents to take care of patients. All of a sudden, those were not there anymore. So we were doing very well. But two things: the people who are not vaccinated and people who are not wearing masks. And so when some healthcare leaders and some political leaders decided that we should all wear masks, at the very least, that caused the governor of Florida to go crazy and say that nobody should wear a mask. There shouldn't be a mandate in schools in Florida. And then he threatened to punish the members of school boards, the people who instituted any regulations about mask mandates. He opposed them. And then as a result, Florida is a basket case in terms of COVID. They cannot get rid of it. And also in Texas, we saw videos of hospitals in Houston where the staff was saying, "No, we give up. We cannot deal with this. It's just too many people." And there's another aspect of this in terms of social responsibility. Social responsibility. It's not just you. That you have your own desire not to put something into your veins that you think is going to damage you. But how about the people around you? Even close relatives. How about your grandparents? How about the elderly around you? And how about the rest of us? Because if you refuse to vaccinate, that's one thing. But if you refuse to vaccinate and you refuse to wear a mask, you're really putting us all in danger. Also, if you refuse to vaccinate, you refuse to wear a mask, and you're spreading COVID, you're doing damage to school children, because now that has also expanded into younger people. More and more in hospitals, in the ERs around this country, younger people who initially were not adversely affected. Now more and more of them, between the ages of 19 and 40, many of them are in hospital because of COVID. So DeSantis and Abbott in Texas, irrational governors, irrational decisions. For what purpose? Because DeSantis supposedly has political ambitions beyond Florida. He wants to run for president. Well, good luck, Ron DeSantis, because outside of Florida, I don't think anybody is going to vote for you. We have seen what you did. We know how you have governed in Florida. We know your opposition to vaccination. We know your opposition to mask mandates that offer minimal protection to people, to young people who need to go to school, need to return to school. And he has more abominable decisions he has made, threatening the people with withdrawing their funding, threatening principals and heads of school boards, the presidents of school boards, with not paying their salaries. So all those things are illegal, actually. He cannot not pay these people, but the threat is there, looming over the people in Florida. Why is that? I mean, that when we say elections have consequences, elections have consequences. We saw the consequences of the 2020 presidential election. And now Texas and Florida are seeing the consequences of two leaders who lack responsibility, who act in self-interest. And it's hard to understand. I mean, that is not even a conservative point of view, because conservatives have stood for some things that at least can be explained rationally and logically. But this kind of mentality, and we know that a lot of this is at the service of one man, because a lot of these people around the country, a lot of legislatures around the country, senators and congressmen in Washington fear one man. Republicans fear one man in Mar-a-Lago. And it doesn't matter. I mean, more and more we see how immoral, how unethical this government was in the 4 years of Donald Trump. How many of these people would end up in jail? Some of them already closely linked to Trump have been in prison. And like COVID, it's a tough scourge to get rid of. It will take this country a long time to recover from the 4 years of Donald Trump. This piece by Spike Lee that I just saw, I believe it's HBO, detailing what happened during the Trump administration. It's scary when you see it all, when you see the timeline and you see the different players that came into view and what they did and what they said, from Michael Cohen to Giuliani to McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, how they were enablers. And now the House is investigating January 6th, the events of January 6th. And we can talk a little bit more about that, because that is affecting our daily lives. What happened on January 6th is we feel that our democracy was truly at risk. That is no small threat. That is not just a vague menace in the distance. That was very present, very real. And there are people who are denying that it happened. A little bit more about that, but we're going to take a brief pause here in USA la Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil at the control. We come back in 1 minute.
Find out how to use an awkward silence to help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Señores oyentes de USA la Radio, les habla Fernando Méndez aquí desde la mesa redonda. Pastor Phil at the controls. Talking about awkward silence. I mean, there was a brief pause there where nothing could be heard, but that's radio, and that's live radio. Here we are. Where do we start with this? I mean, there's so many things happening that should have us concerned, because there is a drive across the country by Republicans in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Arizona, in California, where they want to get rid of the governor. It's a drive across the country. Republicans who want revenge for having being for having lost the 2020 election. They are determined to unseat senators from Georgia. They are determined to replace Newsom in California. And they are determined to support the aberrations of the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, and the governor of Texas. Governor Abbott in Texas is one of those people who should be the campaign against him. There's many reasons to campaign against this governor. I would like to make a list someday and ask people, I say, what do you think of this? What do you think of DeSantis doing what he does in Florida, putting people in danger, children? What do you think of, let's say, Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz still follows Donald Trump. We don't know what Donald Trump has on this guy. But Donald Trump has insulted Ted Cruz, insulted his wife. He said Ted Cruz's father was involved in the JFK assassination. And Ted Cruz follows Trump. Some form of, what is that? Stockholm syndrome. Stockholm syndrome. Like the way Trump defended Vladimir Putin. And there, we probably do have good basis to know that Putin somehow, he must have had something on Trump. Otherwise, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's not logical that Putin will have such control over Trump. Remember one thing. I think the economy of Russia is the equivalent of, I think somebody said Belgium, the national budget of Belgium, the economy of Russia. And yet, politically speaking, this man is on a par with Xi Jinping from China, and he has had Donald Trump in his pocket. But to the extent that Donald Trump wanted to bring him back into the G7, wanted him to be part of NATO. Well, in fact, what Putin would have loved, and still probably trying to do, is to undo NATO. He did everything possible to create animosity with Germany and in the US, with the European countries in general, and the United States. He almost succeeded with the help of Trump and Giuliani and Pompeo and Mitch McConnell. Someday, history will hold him accountable. It might be too late in some ways, by then, by the time historians can really look at this whole period, and closest scrutiny could reveal certain truths. It might be too late for us. Many of us will not be around to see that. Remember, Fidel Castro said, La historia me absolverá. History will absolve me. That's what Castro said. Well, not really, Fidel, because it is evident that communism failed, that every Marxist government became a dictatorship. Every communist government destroyed the economy of the countries where it was in control. From Cuba, of course, Fidel blamed that on the US blockade. Nicaragua, again. China was a basket case economically until somehow they decided that they could do both, have a capitalist country with a communist government. The danger there is that the communist government is dominant over the business community, and we saw what happened in Hong Kong. And now Taiwan is scared because the microchip industry in Taiwan is the dominant one. In fact, they're, I think, number one in the world in production of microchips, essential to run computers, airplanes, cars, all types of technology. And China wants to, I'm sure they have an eye on Taiwan because that's where that industry is. Now, the company, I forgot the name of the company right now, that is the number one in the world, is also moving into the United States, apparently, and they're setting up a factory, I believe, in Arizona, near where the headquarters are of Intel, which is the number two company in the world producing microchips. So all this is part of a recent 60 Minutes program. So, and you could probably find all that information right now through YouTube. But that's, again, going back to what I began with this comment, that communism, the only way they have remained in power is by becoming dictatorships. And that the only way they give up power is through violent means. They stay in power. They stay in power using force, using the military. In Venezuela, for instance, Hugo Chavez used the military. He paid his generals and his lieutenants a lot of money for the army to stay on his side. And Maduro learned a lesson, and he's doing the same thing. In the meantime, people are starving. In the meantime, the most basic necessities. In Venezuela, one of the richest countries in Latin America, basic necessities are not available. So why is anybody interested in communism? It's already shown that it failed the Soviet Union, 75 years. Oh yeah, well, it hasn't been tried. Communism hasn't, real Marxism has not been tried. Well, yes, it has been tried and it failed. It sounds pretty on paper. Equality for all, everybody has the same. There is no competition because everybody owns the same things. And the central government will distribute to every citizen according to their needs. Well, we know what happened with that whole system. It doesn't work. What it means is at the very top, there's an elite of people in the government who will benefit. Maybe it's just false rumors, but Castro is supposed to be one of the richest men in the world. Putin is supposed to be one of the richest men in the world. I don't know Xi Jinping in China, but I'm sure Chavez and Maduro control a lot of money and influence. The US has made many tactical and strategic mistakes by leaving the scene in Latin America and making it possible for China to come in. So a friend of mine, a Peruvian friend of mine, who used to live in Philadelphia as a computer expert, Victor Ramos, and he said at one point going into Peru, the airplane was full of Chinese businessmen with their portfolios coming in to Peru, obviously ready to do business. Same thing in Venezuela, and we know what Putin did in Venezuela. He put some airplanes there as a sign that he could do that anywhere, because he did in Cuba. Let's remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, and so yeah. So we why this is another side comment here. Why would anybody contemplate communism, socialism? Because they changed their name to make it more palatable. And now there's a place where this apparently works in the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. Apparently a mix of capitalism and socialism. But these are highly educated societies, homogeneous societies for the most part, and sort of easier in that sense to have consensus, to agree to pay 70% of your income in taxes, because everything else is free: transportation, medicine, education. Now, anytime we talk about free education in this country, there's a tremendous outcry from conservatives. What? Free education? Because they prefer to spend more money on aircraft carriers. So, yeah, right now, there are Republicans objecting to anything that has to do with improving the educational systems across the country. As we mentioned, Governor DeSantis in Florida is trying to do more and more damage to the educational systems. So that's one thing that we are fairly certain would work: having a sound educational system if you want to get out of poverty and give people opportunities. More about that on the other side. We're going to take a brief pause here in Usa la Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Pastor Phil at the controls. Regresamos en un minuto.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Señoras y señores de USA la Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil at the controls. And yeah, Feeding America, that commercial, that ad, really, there are so many children going hungry in this country. And that is a shame, and that should shame our leaders, that there are children in this country going hungry. We are supposed to be one of the most powerful economies in the world. I don't know. Why will children go hungry? And speaking of that, I mean, we have, Philadelphia is supposed to be the poorest urban center in the country. And within the poorest urban center in the country, we have the poorest community, the Hispanic community in Philadelphia. And so the poorest of the poorest. And we know that there are children going hungry. So as I was speaking of education as a tool that the government can use to improve the lives of the people. We know that there are some of the basic necessities. I forgot what was a philosopher that had the essentials, food, shelter, clothing. Some of the basic necessities that we all expect our government to help us sustain. And the other one would be education. Feed the body and feed the spirit. Mens sana in corpore sano was the Roman motto. Mens sana in corpore sano. Mente sana in cuerpo sano. Healthy mind and a healthy body. And how can we do that if we're going hungry? How can a child go to school suffering from hunger? And that's what many of our children in this city and in many poor areas around this nation are facing every day. Drug-infested neighborhoods, violent neighborhoods, where they cannot even walk to school. And because of COVID, of course, they are facing more and more obstacles. That's one of the most damaging things that COVID did to this nation and to the world. Children have been deprived of a proper education for more than a year now. And we were expecting to recover. We were on the way to recovery until this Delta virus hit again. Scientists are predicting that there will be more serious outbreaks coming up when the weather gets cold, and when more people go to work, more people will go to school. And that is why it is urgent to get vaccinated, get a vaccine. That's why it's urgent to take precautions. Continue to disinfect, continue to wear masks, continue to avoid large crowds where you don't know who is vaccinated. You don't know, especially in a crowd where there are no masks. And tragically, we have seen the consequences of this. Games that where many spectators attended and became ways for COVID to spread. And we should listen to the people who understand these pandemics, Dr. Fauci and Gupta and Birx and other doctors who actually know what happens when we don't take precautions, what happens when we don't get as many of us vaccinated as possible. Again, public service announcement from Usala Radio. There are more vaccines available. And we can see the signs at CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens. There are vaccines available. There are tests available. You should be tested. And wear a mask right now because of the sudden upsurge. in COVID because of the Delta variant. Masks, even for those of us who are vaccinated, are essential. Because we could be carrying the virus, even though we do not experience the effects of COVID, we could be carrying it if we're not protected, and we don't protect others. So the mask is a way of protecting ourselves and protecting other people. Vaccinations protect us and protect other people, relatives, friends, co-workers. And we're expecting our economy to do better in spite of COVID, in spite of all this. We are still hopeful that we can sort of, with a mix of a combination of precautions, with the masks and with the vaccination, that we can start moving our economy again. A great number of jobs were created recently. I saw a number like 11 million. But we had lost so many jobs that this is still a small number in terms of the overall economy. So we can help. We can help in so many ways. We can help to restore the health of our cities, our country. We can help to restore the economic health of our cities and our country. But all this requires the contribution of everyone. It's not the responsibility of government alone to keep us safe. It's all of us. We are responsible. Another thing that we cannot ignore is the fact that as we left Afghanistan, as the Biden administration made a decision to leave, to bring that forever war, as Biden called it, forever war in Afghanistan, to bring it to an end, and we left, the US left, that there are some people still there, some Americans still there. We don't know exactly if all of them wanted to leave. I'm sure many of them did. But there's the consequences of war. There you are. And there was no pretty way to bring that conflict to an end. There was no easy way. Diplomats and political experts will tell us there's no easy way to bring a conflict of that kind to an end without casualties, without paying a price. So we are there, and unfortunately, there are political imperatives here, and people are chastising the president for having done it. No president wanted to do it. Biden did it, and now he's paying a political price. And in addition, because we have left, and there are so many Afghans who are suffering, this city has opened the doors to many of those refugees. So if you hear of any Afghan citizen in our city of brotherly love, and you can help, do not hesitate. They need help. And with that, we come to an end here in Úsala Radio. Les habló Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil at the controls. Hasta la próxima. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Méndez, host of the Round Table. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news.